Hi, everyone. Welcome to the UXtweak webinar. I believe that there is more and more people joining us. You might be joining from YouTube, from LinkedIn. Let me know if you can see me. I hope everyone can see me, everyone can hear me. If anyone is struggling, write us in the comments. Welcome to UXtweak webinar. My name is Petra. I work for UXtweak as researcher. I work on product and I am passionate about research. And that's something what we have common in UXtweak. And we really believe in power of community. And that's why we have different initiatives. One of those is hosting these webinars. And this is a place where we want to learn from each other. We want to connect. We want to get inspired from the leaders in the industry. And we want to start the discussions. So I hope that you brought your curiosity. I definitely brought mine, and I cannot wait to hear more from our guest, LaKeisha. But before we get to that, I have a little bit of introduction for you. So I will start sharing my screen. And I introduced myself, but I want to learn a little bit more about you. So I'm curious to know, where are you joining us from? I am based in Bratislava, in Slovakia, in Europe, and LaKeisha, our amazing guest, is from US in Atlanta. So we are in different time zones. So I want to see where our audience is based. So you can scan the QR code, you will join Slido event, or you can go to slido.com and use the hashtag, the event code UXtweak to join Slido. From Slido, you will be able also to ask questions. So let's see, where are you joining us from? I hope people can, oh, amazing. I can see people typing in. I was getting worried. Okay, we have Germany. So we have some people from Europe. Cyprus, oh, I'm jealous. I think that it's hot there, sunny, but we are getting the sun also here in Bratislava. We have Prague, so that's our neighbors. And we have more US folks. So LaKeisha will have also some fellows on the call with us. Cool. Sweden just got bigger in the middle. So there is a couple of people joining us from Sweden. That's interesting. Maybe research is a big thing in Sweden. Now I want to learn more. We have Brazil. So we have many different time zones covered here. For me, it's evening. Germany, Sweden, it's also evening. For LaKeisha in the US, it's around lunch, right? So people in the different parts of the day, but we all made time to come and join this webinar so we can learn a bit more about research, about AI, and so on. And I just gave you a hint. Thank you for all the submissions. I gave you a hint that we will be talking about AI. You probably also saw the title of today's webinar. And I was also thinking about my attitude towards AI. It actually changes a lot. And it changes. I have some weeks, I have some days, and I have some moments when I feel differently about AI. So it got me thinking, where are you right now at this current moment? What is your vibe towards AI right now? If you were to compare it to the live stage that we get to experience, are you like the cheeky child that is curious, messy, breaks things, just goes for it? And those children sometimes get it right, but many times they just get it wrong and they try again. Or are you in that teens age where you are just testing the limits, you are trying to create your own identity, your own workflow, and just trying everything? Or are you more like the stable midlifer? You are in a groove, you already know what you are doing, kind of, it's more predictable. Or you are the Zen master, you are already calm, wise, you are detached from the drama, and you are just worrying about your own bit. Or you are that very grandparent, you have seen it all and you are over the hype and you are just ready for the nap. I'm quite happy that I see only 5% of people going for that one, because today we will be getting into like how we can use AI, where it makes sense, where it doesn't, and so on. So restless teen, okay, I like that it's winning, and also the cheeky children. So LaKeisha, I think we have the right audience here today with us. And for those who went for the Zen Master, I hope that there is some bits in the presentation for you as well that you can learn from, and you can also join the discussion and share your view on things as well. So thank you for submitting that. And let's go to the agenda of today. So the plan for today will be, at the beginning, I will introduce UXtweak platform. It's going to be short. I will just take you through the main features and so on, just so you know what we offer. And then we will get to the main part of today, and that's going to be presented by LaKeisha Lovett, and she will be talking about how research leaders pressure test AI insights. And at the end, we will wrap it up with a Q&A with the audience. You can stay in Slido. You can submit your questions there. You can upload the ones that you like, just to get those the most popular ones at the top. And we will answer those at the end. You can also write them in the chat if you want, if you prefer, and I will try to write it down. Okay, so that's the plan for today, and let's start. So to talk a little bit about UXtweak. UXtweak is a UX research platform that was created by researchers for researchers. Of course, anyone can use it. There is more and more people who are doing research, designers, product managers, maybe even some engineers. So everyone is welcome. And we are trying to support all these different personas. What you can do in UXtweak. So we give you tools to support you throughout the whole product development cycle. So it doesn't matter whether you want to test information architecture all the way at the beginning. You can do it with card sort tests, tree tests, and so on. Maybe you want to understand your users better. You want to test their preferences to see what they would go for, which design would win, and so on. You can set up also surveys there. Or you want to do some usability testing. You can do it in UXtweak as well. You can test your mobile interface, you can test your prototypes, websites, or you can set up the first click tests. Or perhaps you are in the discovery phase and you really want to get deep into understanding the whys behind the behavior, and you want to talk and discuss and to get into those nitty bits. You can do it on our live interviews, so you can set those up as well. And it doesn't end with setting up the tests, right? So I want to highlight the live interviews and moderated testing here, because after you do all those testing, you can also stay in UXtweak. You can analyze those results that you get. You can create snippets, and you can have everything in one place. And what is special about UXtweak is that it's not only a UX research platform where you can set up all those different tests, but you can also recruit participants for those testings. And you can also create those tests and share it with your own audience. But when it comes to our user panel, these are 4 pillars that it stands on. We guarantee quality. So we make sure that you are setting up the tests that make sense, that the users are able to go through, and that you talk to the relevant people, not just anyone that you can meet on the street, right? You can also recruit for any of the studies that you set up in UXtweak, and we provide worldwide coverage. So it doesn't matter what market you are focusing on, what country you are focusing on, we should be able to support you with that. And we also provide you with the free replacements. So in case the interviews do not meet your needs, or you are not getting the output that you have expected, you can let us know, and we can provide you with a free replacement. So just to sum it up, UXtweak is a platform where you can recruit, conduct, analyze, and share UX research all in one place. And of course, we are constantly working on more and more improvements, trying to understand our users better, their workflows, and so on, and to bring some innovation. In January, we launched a new dashboard, so you can see it. In case you have used UXtweak before, you will see a bit of a change there. And just a few days ago, we also launched an insights editor. So you start with testing, analyzing those results, and so on. And then you can create your reports directly in UXtweak. So you write down your insights and you can attach there some evidence. So you can create the snippets, you can add quotes, tables, charts, anything you want to create your reports. Yes, so if this sounded interesting to you, you can also scan this QR code and get in touch with my lovely colleague Barbara, and she would be happy to show you more of UXtweak and discuss different options and so on. So that's it about UXtweak. I promised to keep it short and sweet. So I hope that I met your expectations. And without further ado, let's go to the main bit of today. So I would like to introduce you, LaKeisha L. Lovett. Hi, LaKeisha.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh, we are excited as well. It's actually, I'm pretty thrilled to have you here today because you're bringing over 2 decades of experience in research, but you actually started in design. I was listening to your podcast and it's must be amazing because you have been through evolving landscape of design research where like back then I think that a lot of industries, a lot of people were not even that familiar with the
No,
term UX, right? They didn't
no,
know
it
what to
didn't exist.
expect. Yeah.
Right.
What does it mean? But now you transition into this AI era and you are navigating that as well because you are currently serving as a user experience principal in Home Depot and understanding all these, navigating all these changes and translating it into the outcomes and so on, right?
Right. Yep. For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's going to be amazing presentation from you because you will show us or help us to move past the AI hype into what really matters, where it makes sense to use AI and where the human element still cannot be substituted, right? But I want to flip the coin. Before we get to the presentation, you will be talking about where AI makes sense and where you really need this human expertise when it comes to like the what we do as researchers, right? But when it comes to analyzing the human behavior, from your experience, have you seen anything when it comes to the analysis of human behavior that AI still cannot get right, where it really doesn't understand, where you need that human present to really get into those insights?
Definitely. And I'm talk about that a lot in the presentation today. It's the reading in between the lines and reading the body language, understanding in the organization I work for, we call it organizational savvy. Some people might call it political savvy. But
Mhm.
and so it's having situational awareness, all the things that are unique to the human experience that just AI just would never understand.
Yeah, well, I totally agree with you. And I love doing research, but it's also about that human connection, right? You
Yes.
open up the user, you start the discussion, and it's totally different. So sometimes it works, sometimes it's just not enough.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think there was enough of me. So I would like to give a word to you and let's get to the juicy bits of today. Over to you.
Thank you. Cool. So I'll jump in. One thing I will call out, if you all stay on until the end, there's a QR code, not the one you see right now, but a QR code at the end that'll give you access to a checklist that I've created that includes some of the content in what I'm going to go over today, but you'll have to stay to the end to get that. But now let's jump into learning how research leaders pressure test AI insights. I'll also speak to something that I have called the judgment layer framework as well. Let's see. Cool. So a little bit about me. Of course, you heard the 2 decades in UX, and every time I see the number 20 plus, I'm like, wow, that can't be true, but it is. So I spent about 20 plus years in UX and product strategy at scale. Currently, I am a UX leader, transitioning from people leader to UX principal within the enterprise retail space, and I'm focused on our AI transformation initiatives. And specifically, what that means is I'm doing a lot of enterprise discovery, or said another way, research, to understand current state of how our users, most of which are internal work, so that we then can use that to define how we power their experiences with AI in the future and do it in a responsible way. And one thing that I've thought about a lot, especially as someone who spent a lot of time hiring UXers, is how important thought quality. It's always important, but it has become even more important when it's super easy to get things executed using AI. I believe thought quality even more is more of a competitive edge. And so I'm super excited to be here today speaking to this community, to say that out loud. I try to say that as much as possible. So some of what you see in the deck today may be things that you're already doing. They may be things that you aren't doing and that you want to maybe write down as opportunities for your own personal growth. But with that, I'll keep going. All right, so first I'll lay the foundation. I'll say another question I've kind of been asking myself over the last year plus or more is, what really makes someone irreplaceable in this AI powered workplace, AI powered world, etc.? And when I think about that, a lot of what makes us irreplaceable is that invisible work, kind of what I spoke about earlier, perceiving the behaviors of other humans that you might be interacting with, building those relationships, the tiny things you might do behind the scenes to make sure your presentations go well or your readouts go well at work. It's reading body language. All of those things are kind of invisible but important to the work that you do. But to bring that home a little bit more, I have 3 layers of how I like to think about work. That first layer is really the execution piece. It's the visible part, it's the tasks, the outputs, the deliverables. AI is really good at helping you do a first pass at your research plan, maybe doing a first pass at your synthesis. But then there's that interpretation layer, which is partially visible. And that's where you're trying to make sense of everything that you've heard, maybe in a research interview, focus group, whatever. You're trying to understand the context of what people are saying. And AI can still help with that by maybe identifying some patterns and themes. But really, that's where your expertise as a human comes in. And then the third layer, orchestrate, is what I believe is invisible. And that's where I came up with what I'm calling this judgment layer sort of framework. But that's sort of the space between what AI gives you. There's this judgment layer of you determining what makes sense, and then you applying some executive decisioning behind what you're going to actually use from AI, how you're going to refine it, frame it for your audience. Okay, so now, like, where AI fits into this judgment framework. So I mentioned on the previous slide, AI is great at helping you to execute things. It's good at helping you make sense of things. Again, bucketing things. You may have multiple transcripts for a particular research study. Well, it can help you identify themes and patterns. It can help you draft maybe your first pass at your readout deck, and like I mentioned earlier, your research plan, etc. But leaders, and I'll say this, like, you'll hear me reference the word leaders, and I know some of you may be saying, well, I don't have a leadership title, is this even relevant to me? It is, because I view researchers, oftentimes they bring us in when there's nothing known and the space is very ambiguous. And so I like to call that, like, you have to come in and flip the light switches on for people. And so when I think about that, that is absolutely leading. And so hopefully you all see that about yourselves. But to go into that a little bit further, leaders must own that orchestration layer, apply the judgment under ambiguity, and navigate relationships in real time, but then also be prepared to carry the consequences of whatever you're delivering in your research insights or readouts, etc. Okay, so more about the invisible work that AI can't do, and I kind of spoke to this earlier. It can't recognize the patterns from organizational memory, and like an example of that might be like Maybe your organization tried to do a certain project 5 years ago and it didn't work, but there's lessons learned. AI has no insight into that. You do. And so that's what I mean by organizational memory that makes you powerful as a human and irreplaceable. And then number two, relational calibration in real time. That's that relationship building. That's you reading people's body languages to know, okay, well, I have some context that this particular partner is motivated in this way and they're measured in that way. And so maybe when I deliver the insights, I might need to, if they're going to be in the room, I might need to deliver something that would make their ears perk up. And so that's what I mean by like relational calibration. It's like reading the room, but then also, when you're not in those larger rooms, taking the time to build those relationships apart from just the work, just doing the work. And then number three, judgment under ambiguity. So AI can suggest so many options to where it's almost overwhelming. And I think this is a spot where sometimes you just need to decide, like, do I even really need AI to do this? Is it going to overcomplicate and just give me pages and pages of things to read where I could just go with my gut instead? This also is where, I talked about earlier around, we carry the consequences. And so knowing when, what hill you want to die on, or if you want to live to fight another day, knowing when to push on an issue, knowing when to maybe pivot and try a different route, and maybe like putting your foot down and escalating. That's the judgment under ambiguity that AI really can't help you with. It might could give you some talking points, but ultimately you have to figure out how best to apply them based on your observation of the context around the work you're doing. Okay, so judgment layer framework, again, I kind of talked about this a few slides ago, but wanted to illustrate it out for you. So there's this AI output, and I'll say this, like a lot of what I'm talking about assumes that you all are using some form of LLM to help you synthesize and organize your research. My favorite one right now is Notebook LM. My organization supports the use of that, so I know I can use that without compromising any confidential information. And so just a little bit about how I'm using it is I upload all of my transcripts there, my research study, my research plan, so that it has context of all of my research goals, questions, the types of users I'm going to be interviewing, as well as the business impact that the initiative I'm working on can have on the company, because that context is really important. I know sometimes we as researchers may not get connected to that as much because we want to present our research in an unbiased way, but that context becomes very important when you think about how you're going to deliver your research insights. And then there's that executive decisioning where you are deciding from the AI output, your own judgment, what it is you want to actually share in your readouts. Okay, so how do I actually pressure test these AI insights using the framework? So, I kind of think about there's checkpoint one, assumption exposure. This question is something that I absolutely love because it has helped me kind of get ahead of questions that might come out in my readouts that might, in the past may have actually derailed the readout. So this one question I love to ask is, what questions would a pragmatic leader ask about these recommendations? And you could go, and I typically go a lot more specific. I'll like state the leader's title. So let's say it's a VP of product management, and maybe even put their name. And this might be where, because my organization also uses Copilot. So this might be where I would maybe take my initial insights and recommendations that I've come up with and maybe take them into Copilot, because it has context of your organization's org structure, and even it can reference some of the documentation that the leader you're naming has maybe written for some additional context into how they think and work. And so I'll go down to like, type in the name, the title. I'll even say, like, some organizations, you do personality tests. I might even say this person has, an analytical mindset or whatever, just to really give AI that context around the person, so that when they give me a response to my questionnaire, it's something that's more reliable than me just giving it just very vague information. I'll also ask it AI to reframe and tighten my insights for my audience. I feel like I use AI like 50% of the time to do that because I can just be very brevity is something that I am working to be better on, but particularly when you're in rooms with executives, and typically I'm presenting to directors, senior director, vice presidents across UX, product, engineering, business. And so those folks are, have huge spans of control and just have a lot of things on their mind. So being tight with the language that you present to them is very important if you want to be able to um, if you really want them to be able to absorb what you're trying to say. So that's one thing I think AI is wonderful for. But again, I may go in and change some of the words that I know to words that resonate better in the organization I work for because I have context of our culture. The other thing, and I'll get into this in a few minutes through a case study I'll share. Back when I was a manager, a lot of times I was presenting research that the folks that I led were doing. And so I would want to go into AI and say, okay, here's what I think this research is saying. Is there anything I'm missing to help further round out my thought quality and help me to think through how I may want to present this research to that more executive level audience. Okay, so judgment layer checkpoint two, narrative interrogation. So again, I'll ask AI, and this assumes I have some insights already in whatever your LLM of choice is. I'll say in personal life, my favorite is Perplexity when it comes to any sort of personal research I'm using. But at work, Notebook LM is what I use, and so I'll ask assuming I have some insights already there, I'll say like, what assumptions are these insights resting on? What would invalidate them? What do these not apply to? What objections would X leader raise? And all of these help you to further think about the story you're going to tell in that readout. And so you can begin to see how some of this stuff could hone your quality of thought. These are also things that you could ask yourself. You don't necessarily have to put these into AI. These are good things to test on your own. So yeah, just wanted to share some thoughts around how to, maybe interrogate your narrative more with AI or just with your own thinking. Okay, so what I wanted to share here, and you may want to take a screenshot of this, are some of the filters that I apply. So I mentioned on the previous slide, I'll ask it to call out the assumptions that I might be making, help me understand what might invalidate my conclusion, who does this not apply to? Again, really calling out like what objections would X stakeholder raise, and if we acted on this and we're wrong, what breaks? And a lot of that for number 5 could come from if you have an idea of the goal and the business objective that the work you're supporting is attached to. If you have that referenced in your LLM, like if it's checked, like if you're using Notebook LM, you have that checked along with your transcripts, then Notebook can use that to help interrogate the question that number 5 is getting at. But this also helps you to not get caught flat-footed, because sometimes some of these questions that you might get from a stakeholder you don't have an answer for, and you feel unprepared, and you just get caught flat-footed in a readout. So this helps you to know what to anticipate and really helps you to step up your game as a researcher. Okay, so the judgment layer, checkpoint 3, signal validation. And what I mean by signal here is like if you've ever done a focus group and maybe there's like this one person that's really loud saying the same thing, that's really noise. But then if you have like everyone in the focus group saying the same thing, maybe in their own way, that's a signal of an insight or something that may need to be addressed. So the first point here is you want to think about repetition across segments. You want to identify any behavioral evidence that's not stated. And so like an example of this that we all know as UX researchers is like, yeah, people say one thing and may do a different thing. And so that's why, you may want to do the interviews, get some qualitative insights, but then look at any behavioral or analytics usage data in the tool or whatever it is that they're using, just to kind of compare the two. But then this third one, cognitive heaviness and workflow, and this is something that's really big for the work I'm doing, trying to identify opportunities for AI, is really looking at like, what are the users doing that's really manual, highly manual, but not strategic? Like, what are they doing outside of systems to compensate for any fragmentation or a lack of data? Those really cognitive heavy things I like to point out, but cognitively heavy, but not strategic. Those are things I'm starting to see where AI can really help us. Like, for instance, the synthesis work that can be cognitively heavy and it can be strategic as well, but like, why not just go ahead and let AI do the first pass? And so the fourth one here is business impact if solved. Again, as someone who's led UXers in the past, that's sort of something that sometimes we don't pay attention to is the business goals related to the work we're supporting. And so I think that's really important because if you're identifying insights that also can impact the business goal of what you're working on, that's a signal of something that you need to make sure that's absolutely in your readout. And then emotional intensity in interviews, that's always a signal of an opportunity. But again, you want to hear that maybe across multiple participants versus one, depending on how large your user group is. All right, so now I'm going to share a case study with you, and I'll go ahead and call out up front. I'm going to be intentionally vague because the specifics of the type of project it was, I don't think matters as much as more so how I prepared and used AI to help me do that. And so the situation was at the time I was a manager and I was preparing an update on a beta initiative. And it was for a room, again, of people, director, senior director, VP and above across engineering, product, customer experience, marketing. I think I named everybody. And so they're very sharp. Again, they are probably working on a ton of things. Um, and so the research was done. I had folks on my team who had done research. And then I had also gotten some NPS metrics and insights from our marketing research team. So it wasn't like I needed to do research. What really mattered was how I was going to frame the story for that particular audience and anticipate any pushback. And so, and also making sure I'm telling the story at the right altitude. And so all of that context was important for me to really get into AI so that it could help me come up with something that would resonate with that group. And so before I go deep into the insights, I'll go back a page. I knew this group. I had already known that like this experience for the broader segment that it was targeted at, there would be challenges to get that particular segment to behave in the way that they would truly adopt the initiative. But I knew that there was a sub-segment in there that behaviorally were likely, I had a hunch that they were likely adopting this beta experience because they were used to maybe identifying themselves to get a discount. So they had that behavior already. And so I knew that like, hey, that's what I want to lead with. I want to lead with what is working and what are some of the things that we can learn about that sub-segment that we might be able to apply to the experience to get the broader segment to adopt. And again, it's like basically something they have to know that something's in it for them. And it may not be a discount, it could be something else, but it has to be worth their while to use this thing that we believe would unlock so much for their customer experience. And so I wanted to tell the story in that way too. And so getting to the insight. And so I used AI to pressure test. That's where I named all the leaders individually and said, how would they respond? And when I understood how they would respond and it made sense to me based on what I know about them individually, I integrated a lot of that into my storytelling. I was able to anticipate their questions, so folded all of that in. And so as a result, most of the conversation was very grounded, and we were able to talk more about, what should we do next? If we know these things, we know this is how it's happening, perhaps we need to figure out how to make this experience more beneficial for the broader user group. And so I'll say that was really the outcome. I didn't get any pushback. I didn't really even get a lot of follow-up questions, which was scary at first. But now that I see where that initiative has gone, I do think some of what I was saying landed. But that's just an example of how I was able to use AI to help me with my narrative. And you can see where like a lot of the thinking and how to approach the audience that came from me. And because I knew the point of view that I wanted to share that might resonate, and I had the context, the situational awareness, the organizational memory of what was important to this group, I was able to put that into AI, and AI was able to help me. formulate a narrative that landed well. Okay, so to summarize all of these points that I've shared so far, so AI sees inside the system. And when I say system, I mean tools, applications, etc. Leaders see outside it. We see the workarounds people don't document. So if you're ever doing like ride-alongs or contextual inquiries, you've learned that people have figured out ways to work around where their tools break down. There's a lot of tribal knowledge that teams rely on that you would never find by running a usage report on a tool. Like you have to talk to people to understand that. And then the political timing and sponsorship, knowing like what's going on in your organization from a planning perspective is also really important when you think about how you want to land your research insights. Like, hey, are we at the beginning of a planning cycle? Are we in the middle of it? Okay, if we're in the middle of it and I really want us to pivot and change, I don't know if this is the right time to do it or not. I might need to get a sponsor. So that's what I mean by bullet 3. And then bullet 4, I talked about organizational memory. And that's really understanding, maybe lessons learned in the past, understanding how your partners might be motivated or measured and like what the success look like for them. Those are things that require you to do to go outside of just synthesizing and doing the research, but building relationships and paying attention and having some context of the situation you're working, the context of the environment you're working in. And again, what won't be said in an interview. Knowing where to look for those kind of clues as well is something that I wanted to call out. Okay, and so where human expertise remains non-negotiable. Again, you know where to push and when to pivot. And if you feel like some of this stuff I'm calling out, I'm not really sure how to navigate this. This is maybe a call to action to maybe spend some time focusing on your organizational savvy or people dynamics. There's a lot of content out there on the internet about how to do that. Because I think, like for me as a researcher, that's what's paid off is building the relationships and the trust. It oftentimes enables my research to land more cleanly with my stakeholders, but also identifying the one insight that unlocks alignment, especially if you're presenting to leaders. Like they are hired to drive success and drive action. And so their ears are going to perk up if you're, speaking insights that will unlock alignment. And again, I'm not that we just want to tailor our insights to what people want to hear, but there is a way to tell a story and to find the light in the tunnel. And so that's really what I mean in that particular box. And then building trust that makes recommendations land. Again, that's the relationship building that you're doing outside of any research activities. That's doing what you say you're going to do, communicating when you're maybe in between sessions, or maybe the research is taking longer than normal, maybe even bringing those partners along, letting them observe some of the sessions if they can, giving them access to the recordings to sort of build that trust. And then anticipating stakeholder questions and objections. I've said that a lot. You need to understand how they're motivated, and you do that through relationships. You do that through interactions that are outside of just a readout or a team meeting. You do that in one-on-one touch bases with your partners. Okay. And so using AI so it amplifies expertise, you can ask AI, hey, like assuming it's generated some insights for you, tell me why. Like, where did you get this from? Why should I, take this approach? And that's one of the things I love about Notebook LM is because it'll reference in the transcripts that I have attached where it pulled its perspectives from. Perplexity does the same thing. That's why I love it as well. And then the control piece, like, again, you can feed it even how you like to talk and present, just to give it more context into how you as a professional like to present and shape your narratives. And then I kind of spoke to context as well. So you bring it the context of the environment you work in, the relationships, what your partners are motivated by, what the business goals are, etc. Giving it that context so that it can really amplify things for you is really key. And I'd say like the challenge I see for UXers that we need to maybe figure out is first understanding what are the things that I do that are invisible. Am I like going out ahead and building these relationships so that my insights will land well in my readout in 2 weeks? Am I like, what other things do outside of just the tactical research activities that are invisible? And then like name those for yourself so that you are aware of it. And then make sure when you're working with AI, if you aren't already, because I know it sounded like most folks were either that relentless teen or the midlifer, and I think I'm somewhere in between that. So you may be doing these things already, but if you aren't, the first step is to really look at yourself and think about what is the invisible work that I'm doing, that if I put it into my research synthesis projects in AI, it would really help amplify how I work. So I would definitely suggest you do that. Okay, and so some key takeaways, just to drive it home a little bit more, is AI definitely handles your synthesis. You still have to handle the sense making. And you know what that looks like for me is like I'm sitting in all these interviews that I'm doing and I'm hearing what's said, and I'm still maybe taking written notes because that makes the what I'm hearing land. And so like when I take those transcripts in the AI and ask it to synthesize it for me, I still can recall what I heard in the readout. And so I know when it is or is not hallucinating. But I'll say like using Notebook LM and like checking the specific transcripts that I wanted to reference, I don't see hallucinations as much, but I am also sometimes able to catch when I do see them because I'm not like checked out in the interviews. I'm just more so focused on facilitating the conversation. But moving on to the next point here is AI will generate all these options. You still have to make the call. You have to make the call to decide if AI is even necessary. Sometimes it just convolutes things and it isn't at all. And AI will definitely accelerate execution. You still have to orchestrate what matters. You still have to create the right environments so that what you're trying to present in your readout actually lands and influences and drives a change. So you have to create that right environment. And I'll leave you with this, like, I don't believe we're being replaced. I do think we are being called to a higher level of thought quality. And that's where we really need to focus. That's where the magic comes from, especially as a UX researcher, is our thought quality, and our ability to take something ambiguous and bring clarity to our partners. And so if you've hung on long enough, here's the QR code where I've created a checklist for you so you can scan it. You can also, if the QR code, for whatever reason, I'm always paranoid that they don't work. I put a tiny URL link here, and I'll drop that in the chat as well. I also encourage you all to reach out to me on LinkedIn to connect. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But that's it for my presentation. And so I'll pause and would love to hear if you all have any questions.
Thank you so much, LaKeisha. I was here with you the whole way, listening, taking notes, and etc. And I loved it. Like, actually, a lot of people are talking about how to use AI in the synthesis, in the process, and so on. But you were also talking how you are using AI in the after the research. What happens when you do all that research? And it's so important because to have those storytelling skills is something what a lot of people do not talk about, and AI can help you with that. So you can lend all those insights to the right stakeholders in the right format and so on. So I really love that. Thank you for including it.
Thanks.
And we have also a couple of questions in Slido, and you can also write questions in the chat still. But to take the top question in Slido, there is a person that wants you to be more specific. You have told us how you are using Notebook and LM and Perplexity, but do you have a specific prompt that you always use?
Some of the questions that I shared are prompts that I might use. In that checklist, I have those questions there that you could potentially use as prompts. But it's really, like I said, my favorite is asking, like, assuming I have the insights there in the LLM, what would this particular leader say of how are they going to respond? That is my favorite because that helps me with my narrative. It helps me to know what maybe I need to pull in that I haven't. That is my favorite. But when I guess I would just need more examples on what they may mean by prompting.
So, if you want to hear more examples, maybe tell us where exactly which prompt you mean, because LaKeisha, you have talked about a lot of places or activities where you can use AI. So that's different prompts every time that you use it. But I liked what you said, like, what would this stakeholder think, or what could he ask? Because sometimes as researchers, we are looking at it from our perspective and we love those details. We are so deep in it. But sometimes different stakeholders, they're like, no, I don't care about that. Like, tell me what I want to know.
Right. I truly believe, I mean, I know sometimes as researchers, we feel like the readouts are our time to get our perspectives out, and they are, but you have to do it in a way that you are able to influence your partners, because no one person had, well, some folks do, but rarely has the final say on what gets prioritized and what gets
Mhm.
worked on. So to me, I view readouts as almost like a show for my partners. And so that's what my prompts are doing. I did think of one thing, like let's say I just uploaded some transcripts and I want to know what the initial insights are. I may say, hey, based on my research goals, and so the goals are there too, and the business impact that we're trying to make, what are the top 5 insights from these transcripts that are related? It's not like a beautiful prompt, but that's a messy way of me trying to recall something that I might ask the LLM. So hopefully that helps.
And you also talked a little bit about hallucinations, and we have also, there is always a question about hallucinations. So when you do this, is there anything else that you do to avoid this happening besides checking in the transcript and so on?
Yeah, I definitely think when you give AI a source to check and tell it to check that source versus just going out into the internet and grabbing stuff, I see that I get less hallucinations when I do that. So, like, source meaning my transcripts are the source, only reference these and tell me this. Like, I don't see a lot of hallucinations. I think I saw it hallucinate, like, it conflated information on a slide deck I had proposed, but I knew enough about the slide deck to say, "Hey, you used the wrong number here." And so I will tell it when it does something wrong. I don't know if that helps it to learn not to do it again, but I see less hallucinations when I'm giving it the data that I wanted to check. And then, but like I said, it's not that I'm not aware of the data myself. Most of the time, I've gone through it on my own. I'm just using AI to help refine my understanding of what I've seen.
hmm
That
And
makes
yeah, definitely. That makes sense. And you are looking at this from the perspective of a senior researcher. So you know what you are looking for. You know how it should look like, what insights make sense, which don't. Is there anything what you would recommend to do to junior researchers that do not have so much experience and they want to use AI because everyone does that? But then is it like a shortcut?
I do think, and I guess I have to drop into that. When I think about maybe more junior talent, I do think having clear, that's where the research plan becomes very helpful with you
Mhm.
synthesizing, is having clear, aligned on research goals with your stakeholders. So if you're clear on the goal and the learning objectives of the research, you can almost use those different learning objectives as your prompts. Like, hey, here's the transcript, find me the answer to this research objective. I hope that makes sense. But I would also still challenge even a junior, not to say even a junior, but juniors should also be listening and reading transcripts for themselves and really using AI to help you hone and refine your story versus helping you to make sense of what you heard. Like, you should have your own perspective, and maybe it's sitting down before you go into your AI tool of choice and just drafting out what you think your POV is. It could be a few sentences and then saying, hey, let me know if my perspective is correct based off of this. And then maybe even using that as a prompt in AI to kind of pressure test your thinking with whatever transcripts or data you've uploaded. Again, I'm kind of speaking off cuff, so hopefully that makes sense to everybody.
Yeah, like we shouldn't underestimate the start of the research and really thinking about what questions we want to ask, what is the goal, and so on, right? Am I getting that right?
Yes, yeah.
Mhm. And LaKeisha, you have a couple of shout outs in the comments and also in slide for a great presentation and about highlighting the invisible work. I wanted to just share that with you. And for our audience, I also want to let you know that there is a feedback poll launched. So you can answer that. Let us know what you liked, what you did, and if you have any recommendations for the next topics. But we still have LaKeisha here. We still have a couple of more questions. And currently, the top question is: have you got any suggestion on using AI for building an insights repository? And we don't mean like tools like Dovetail or Condense, but like how to sustain insights across outputs.
Yeah, so they're talking about insights across multiple studies.
That's, I believe so. Like you have a lot of research projects. You are sitting on a bunch of research, on a bunch of findings, but how do you sustain it?
Yeah, I wish I had a good answer for that.
Mm.
And I'm probably gonna go to Notebook LM again. I think what I have done when I've needed to look at research across what, like back when I was a manager, I would just take the readout deck, especially if I felt strongly about how the research was framed in the deck and no, insights were left out. I would just take the decks from the different research studies and put them into the same project. So that assumes you're practicing good project hygiene in your LLM of choice. I know, like, even in Claude, you can create a project and attach files to it to kind of give it its own memory to um, uh, reference. And so I don't know that I would do it any different than how I do like one study where I'm adding all the transcripts. I would just instead upload all of the research decks or whatever the insights are from the different research studies, and then query or interrogate it with prompts there. If that, hopefully that answers. It's not an elegant answer, but that's all I can think of right now.
That's why we have the Q&A. At least the audience can see it's not prepared and we are just picking your brain. And
Yep.
there is one more question. Not sure whether I know exactly what they mean. Maybe you will get it. Maybe if that person, Lorraine Dukes, if you want to also maybe add a comment. But the question is, again, LaKeisha loved the presentation. How are you using AI to surface insights across platforms?
I guess I would like to understand what they mean by platforms.
Yeah.
Um, because I could take that multiple ways, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah. So Lorraine, if you are still on the call, you can also drop a comment if you want to specify, because I wasn't sure either what you mean by platform, but I will keep it here. And let's go to another question. How do you help stakeholders make informed decisions? Where do you involve them in your research process to ensure your insights land with leadership?
Definitely, there's a whole workshop that needs to happen before you start any study, and that's around the research plan. And so I involve them from the beginning. Like, what is the point of this research that I'm doing? What goal or like strategy is it going to inform? Now, let's sit down and decide together what we want to learn from the study. So I bring them in from the beginning and at every level. You may think like director level wouldn't want to be there, but they do, because, especially product directors are ultimately the ones responsible for the success of whatever is being built. And so I bring them in from the beginning. So before we start a study, we know what we want to learn from it. We know why. And then we're aligned on the outcomes. Are you expecting a journey map artifact? Are you expecting some future state ideas and/or all of the above? Like, we even align on the outcome of the research. And then, as I mentioned, I am happy to invite my partners to, I'm doing a lot of research interviews, to synthesizing sessions. Like, I'll create my journeys in Miro. They have access to the Miro boards. They can give me comments and feedback. So my partners are there for the ride from the beginning. And so in that regard, they have a sense of ownership. And so at the end, it usually lands well. We might go back and forth and split hairs on our interpretation of the learnings, but ultimately it lands much better in the end.
Mhm. And you have mentioned that you use Notebook and LM and Perplexity. How do you decide which tool you are going to use? And do you use any other AI tools in your at your work?
Yeah, at work, I use only what we're allowed, and so Perplexity is what I use in personal. At work, we use a lot of Google products, so Notebook LM, Gemini is allowed, but I don't. I feel like Gemini hallucinates and maybe gives me more information than I need. I mean, I will use Copilot at work because whenever I'm trying to understand the perspective of my stakeholders, Perplexity has knowledge of your organization's org chart. And so it knows if you put the person's name in there, it knows who you're talking about. And it can even look and see if they've created, you know, PowerPoint decks or written white papers. It can reference and kind of infer what their perspectives will be. And so that's what I use a lot at work is Copilot and Notebook LM. But in my personal life, I absolutely love Perplexity because it will, like I said, it'll cite its sources. I love Claude. Claude is really great at creating artifacts for you that you can edit. And I use ChatGPT personally just because it's really great at just brainstorming,
Yeah.
but Claude is really great at writing and producing like really nice artifacts. So I'm trying to think if I'm using anything else. No, that's probably it for now that I know. I mean, AI I feel like is in everything. So
Yeah, it's everywhere. Sometimes we don't even realize anymore that we are using AI and we just are. But yeah, thank you for sharing also the examples of what do you use those tools for. And another question, how do you handle transcripts reviews on more complex subjects such as mortgages, complex subject? For many, transcripts struggle to capture feedback and complexity.
Hmm. I will, because I'm working in enterprise retail for a huge retailer. Everything is complex. Um, I guess taking a step back from just the transcripts, if there's a user group that I need to do some current state discovery with, I will interview at least 4 or 5 of the same users, and then I'll have essentially almost 4 or 5 transcripts saying the same thing. And so then I'm able to, I feel like that makes synthesis a lot easier because then you can just look for patterns. Or if I'm trying to understand current state journey, I ask specific journey questions. Tell me, how does this process start? Who's involved? What are they doing? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? What systems are they using? And so getting really clear on asking the same questions of those users helps with synthesis and breaking down complexity because again, that then if you're going to use AI, it makes it cleaner for AI to know what to go and look for in your transcripts. And again, like I said, I'm making this up. I'm not making it up. I'm thinking through it as I go. And so hopefully that makes sense. But definitely feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn if you want to talk more. Whoever put that in that comment out.
Yeah, definitely. Like as I said at the beginning, we are opening the discussions here. So definitely reach out to LaKeisha and you can also talk on UXtweak account. And we are curious to hear what different people in the industry think and how they're using AI and so on. So you are more than welcome to come there. And I think we are getting to the end. And maybe I would wrap it up with the last question because you took us through your process, how you are using AI right now. Do you see any other trends coming of how AI could be used in the future? Everything is changing, evolving. So, anything specific that you are spotting right now? Any trends coming to us?
Mm, I definitely think our partner expectations of research being accelerated and being able to get from like interview, usability testing, whatever it is you're doing to insight, action, that time, like expectations from partner is closing. Like they expect it to be more accelerated because they assume you're going to use AI to do it. And I don't know if that's a trend in the sense of like AI is related, but our partner expectations of us have tightened up. Um, so that's one thing that I see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I'm aware of. No, I'm pretty sure if I could think a little bit longer, I could think of some other things. But that's the one thing I've seen. I'm like, oh, okay, they expect discovery to be done in a few days and to have an early stage readout in 3 days. Oh my gosh, everybody needs to get on board and you pick some LLM to use to accelerate their work. But yeah.
Yeah. But we still need to ensure the quality and show the leaders that sometimes you can wait a bit longer.
Yeah,
But yeah.
especially if you had a strong research plan. Like, I think that's where I
Yeah.
like to spend the time in is in the planning, and then the research can happen fairly quickly. I know sometimes people cancel and you have to reschedule sessions, but it tends to go more smoothly when you plan well.
Yeah, I love that you are leaving us with some practical tips like really have the strong research plan. You can use these tools for prompting and so on. So, thank you so much for being here with us today. I really enjoyed the presentation, also the discussion. And yeah, feel free to connect with LaKeisha or with us on LinkedIn. And next month, we will have another webinar with another exciting guest and topic. So, I hope to see you then. Thank you so much.
Thank
And yeah, have a lovely rest of the day.
you. Bye.